Well, welcome to the tale of the Amanda Knox murder trial. This is a fascinating story that, well, if nothing else, at least it might convince you to buy some travel insurance before you travel abroad. This is a very scary story. I'm telling you, after hearing this story, you will fall to your knees and you will kiss the ground of the good old US of A. I've covered probably 30 true crimes so far in our podcast and in our CLEs, and I'm telling you, this one is special. It has caused me to see the law in an entirely new way, and I now better understand our legal rights and our procedures. And so to help me tell this story is my co-host on the Murder to Verdict podcast, Leandra Hazlitt. Welcome, Leandra.
Thank you for having me, Joel. I'm happy to be here.
Well, for those who did not attend last month, and I highly recommend you watch last month, we covered the Casey Anthony murder trial. Leandra is a felony prosecutor, which means if you travel through her county, she has power over you. So buyer beware, but just like Spider-Man, she only exercises that power responsibly. Leandra, did you get that
That's
reference?
correct. Yes, I did. Thank
All
you.
right, yeah. With great power comes great responsibility, and I know you're the best prosecutor out there. And so, Leandra, let's jump right into this story of Amanda Knox. So, Amanda Knox was born and raised in Seattle, Washington. Was an ambitious and academically driven young a woman. She embodied life's aspirations, and as many college students did. Well, so there, Seattle's a really nice place to live. I wouldn't mind seeing that Space Needle there and living. She attended the University of Washington. She just grew up in a normal house. Her parents were divorced when she was very, very young, but both parents lived in the same neighborhood there in Seattle. So, they had a good relationship, at least a relationship. They wanted to put the kids first and foremost, but Amanda wanted to travel abroad. She wanted to go study for a semester for a year in Italy, and she attended the University of Washington. And so in September 2007, she wanted to study in Perugia. So she goes up to her parents. She invited them out to dinner, and she's going to drop this bombshell on them to say, hey, Mom, Dad, I know I'm only 19 years of age, but I want to go for a year over to Italy, to Perugia, Italy, and study abroad. Can you help give me some context here? Would you ever think about doing something like that as a 19-year-old?
No, I don't. I did not have that type of goal at 19. I was not ready to leave the nest yet. In fact, I didn't actually move away from my hometown until I went to law school. I milked that with my family for as long as I possibly could. I was not overly ambitious like that. I was excited to do what I was doing at 19, but in the comfort of my hometown where I had a scholarship and everything was really cheap, I did not have that desire at the age of 19.
Well,
So good for her.
to her surprise, her mom and dad said, "Yep, we respect your wishes. You've done some planning, you've done some saving, so you have our blessing to go to halfway across the world and study for a year in Perugia, Italy." In fact, the dad said, "I worry that you're too trusting for your own good, Amanda. What if something happens? I just can't make a phone call or come over. You'll be on your own. It's a long way from home." Well, those words are kind of premonitious, as because we know how this story is going to take a
Famous
very,
last words. Yeah.
yes, very drastic turn. And so there is a map of Perugia, Italy. Perugia is smack dab in the middle of Italy, if you will. And so I recently went there to Rome. So I took some pictures of the trip from Rome to Perugia. So we were in Rome, killing a couple of days. And so we took the train. So you can take a train. It's about a 3-hour train from Rome to Perugia. I highly recommend you do it. And there's a train station that Amanda went to. She actually came from Florence, and when she went there, she came there with her sister, who is younger than her. So can you imagine 19-year-old Amanda with younger sister, suitcases in tow? They had no place to stay, and they show up at this train station. Now, I showed up at that train station, and I had no idea where to go. I was just trying to figure out where I'm gonna cover the Amanda Knox story. She also had no idea where she was going to go. Now, according to her account, they were supposed to take a shuttle, maybe to the downtown area, but she decided, you know what, we'll just hoof it. And so I decided, you know what, I'm just going to hoof it. And so you leave the train station, and I didn't have luggage. I mean, I didn't have, a younger sister. I had my wife there, but we didn't have suitcases. And there were some signs along the way to kind of show you where to go. But Leandra, I'm telling you, those roads are narrow and they were hilly. Amanda said in her book she didn't realize how hilly they were. She was saying, "Oh, I'll just stroll down the sidewalk. It's only a mile or so. How far can it really be?" Yeah, it was quite a jaunt to go to her place. On her way to her place, you actually would pass the University of Perugia there, which is where she was going to study for a year. It wasn't that far from where she lived. And so here's what happened. She gets there, and so she finds a coffee shop. And now, actually, in walking there, she couldn't quite make it. And so they were pulled over. They were just kind of sitting on their suitcases. They had no idea how they're going to finish this haul. A guy pulls up in his sports car, speaks Italian, doesn't really speak much English, broken English at best. He motions for them to get in, and the sister's probably trying to think, well, I don't know if this is really a smart idea to get into some stranger's car. And before this, the sister could really think this through, she looked around and Amanda was already in the front seat. Let's go. Let's enjoy this journey. Leandra, any thoughts getting in a stranger's car? No, he was an older man, like probably 45, 50-ish. Middle age, just hopping in his sports car to get a ride to wherever you're going.
There's no way. There's absolutely no way. I mean, even
Yeah.
at 19, I was such a scaredy cat. Not
Yeah.
a shot I'd end up in somebody's car.
Can we say hell no? That would be my response in that situation.
Yeah.
Well, he hit on them in that car. He
Of
asked them
course he did.
yeah. He asked, "Hey, you ever heard about disco? Are you sure you want to go to the hotel? I'll take you to a disco."
These young American girls that are so vulnerable, they got into my car. Oh my God.
Yes. So when he finally dropped them off and near the Holiday Inn Hotel, he dropped them off basically with a grin of, "You can't blame a guy for trying." Dude, you're middle age. You guys talking about a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old. Yeah, you can blame you for trying. This is just, if I were a dad and I had a girl, if I were dad of a 19-year-old girl and they were all the way over there, I have no idea what I would do if I knew about that. All right. Well, she had no place to stay. I mean, when she actually landed there and arrived in Perugia, the plan was to find a place to stay. And so she saw she's at a coffee shop and she saw one of these little posters where you rip off the signs on it. So it had, a room for rent in a villa. She said, okay, well, I'll look into it. So she goes over there. Leandra, I'm telling you, this place looks amazing to me. Now, I read about this place, and it was described as a villa in a rough neighborhood with a history of drug activity, with a modest but lively space where students frequently gather. That's the description I read in some books. Look at it, Leandra.
It's stunning.
Isn't it?
Now, what
All
would you
right.
call that? Is that a valley?
Yeah, it's a huge valley there.
Stunning.
I
Yeah.
mean, talk about a nice view. I mean, how much would you pay
Right.
for that in America? That kind of view. Yeah. So you look to the left. Just I don't know, stunning. You see the mountain range behind it. That's
It's
to the left.
beautiful.
You were look to the left. That's what you would see. And that's actually would be on the way to Raffaello's place. We're gonna get to him a little bit later. That's directly behind her villa. I mean, that's a bad neighborhood in Italy.
You're right.
I don't know. Sign me up on that. But so she goes to the villa. Now, there were 4 women living in this villa, and this villa has 2 different stories, okay? So you got a top floor, which you see there, and then you got a bottom floor behind it. So there's going to be 4 women staying in the top floor, and there's going to be 4 guys staying in the bottom floor. And so now you see this picture here, just to give you some context, the close to you see those 2 windows right there. That's going to be Philomena's room, and then Laura's room is going to be there on the side. Those are going to be the older, the Italian women there, who are locals. They were in law school, actually. They're about 27 years of age. On the far side, there on the far right, so like almost overlooking the canyon, if you will, that's going to be where Meredith's room. Now, Meredith was a 21-year-old, I believe, a British exchange student. So she also was an exchange student, not from Italy. She had come from Britain to study for a year as well. And they're kind of in the middle of the far area. So we go right along that roof line where the two roofs meet is going to be where Amanda's room was. And so again, the views actually were amazing there from that place. All right, well, there is her roommate, Meredith Kircher, again, 21-year-old from England. Now, Amanda and Meredith got along amicably. At least that's what Amanda thought. And I found it to be really interesting. Now keep in mind, Leandra, that the entirety of this story, we're going to start in March. I'm sorry, September of 2007. The murder is going to take place on November 1st, November 2nd, right there in the middle of the night. So we're talking just what, 6 weeks, 8 weeks later,
Yeah.
we're actually going to have the murder.
Yeah.
So when I said they knew each other, they didn't know each other for long. This is a very short period of time we're talking about. All right. So,
Yeah.
but from Amanda's recollection or account, they got along really well. Now, I say it from
Yeah.
Amanda. You got to understand, Amanda was a very bubbly girl. She just loved life. She was, I don't know, exuberant. You know the kind of person I'm trying to describe? Just that American person who's loud, obnoxious, and just lights up a room.
Life of the party for sure.
Yeah, that is Amanda. Now, I want you to envision a stereotypical Brit. All right, I don't know who that would be. I'm thinking, Princess Di or someone like that. The Brits have their personalities. I mean, their persona that goes along with being a Brit. So let me tell you this story, and I want to get your take if this isn't just stereotypical Brit and American kind of dynamics. Okay, there was a little bit of beef between Meredith and Amanda, and do you know what it was about?
Boys?
Uh, Not the first, not the main one. And
No?
I
What's the main
pause, I
one?
hesitate 'cause I don't really know how to say this politely, but I have been to Europe and
Uh-huh.
I've kind of see what they're talking about. Their toilets are different than our toilets. The water level is just different. And Amanda did not realize what that meant. And so, bottom line, after Amanda used the restroom, you're supposed to use the toilet scrub brush to clean the sides of the walls to remove any evidence that you were in that facility. She did not do that. And so,
Oh no.
yeah, apparently Meredith Kircher complained about Amanda to her parents, to the people back home. So people back home were saying, I don't know, these people are getting along very well because Meredith keeps complaining about her roommate Amanda. And Amanda, from Amanda's account, oh, they were just best buds. So I
Best
think Amanda
friends.
was a
That's
little
funny.
oblivious to the tension between the two. Any thoughts on that?
Just typical rooming with another female type behavior. So,
Right. All right. So and there was another tension, but so there actually was a confrontation. Apparently, Meredith had to address that with Amanda. Amanda even writes about that in her book. And Amanda was like, "Okay, good. Thanks for telling me. I did
sure.
not know that."
Done.
And so then she fixed it from there on out. So that just kind of shows you an American there didn't expect that to be an issue. The Brit said, "Hey, this is going to be an issue," so they dealt with it. But they were good friends. They got along. They hung out. Now, not all the time, but they did hang out. Another issue, according to the parents of Meredith, is that Meredith did not like the strange men that Amanda brought home. Now, no one ever articulated what that was about. And if you dig into the record, it's not clear what that, because Amanda really only brought, I think, home one guy before Raffaella. So I'm not even sure what that means. But nonetheless, that's what the parents said. All right, so that is Meredith. She was just full of life, apparently a joy to be around, and a very, very bright future. And by the way, sometimes when you cover these true crimes, it is kind of unfortunate, if you want to say it that way, because if I were to do a poll out there, just walk on the street and just ask people, do you know who Meredith Kircher is? I'm probably going to get a bunch of, I have never heard that person before, right? And I will say, have you ever heard of Raffaella Stolichko? Probably also blank stares. Have you ever heard of
Yeah.
Amanda Knox? They all would say, yep, I know who
Yep.
Amanda Knox is, right? The victim, I mean, the one who lost her
Gets
life,
lost.
Meredith,
Yeah.
people don't really talk about too much, and so she's kind of lost. So we're gonna talk about that here before the end of this class. But people do know who Amanda is. All right, next in our story is who's part of this case is Patrick Lumumba. He was the owner of the La Chick Bar. He was a rock and roll player. He was a musician in that area. He was well liked in town, and so he had a little bar, and he hired Amanda to be the I don't know if hostess is the right word for it, but you know the context where you have a bar and you want to round up people to come to the bar. And so he hired Amanda to go out there and pass out flyers. Say, hey, come to La Cheek
A
tonight. It's going to be a
promoter.
great time.
She was a promoter.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I can imagine why Patrick hired her. You got this American, exotic looking, very
She's
attractive.
young, very pretty. Yeah.
Yeah. And you kind of get the feeling from reading these accounts that Amanda was just starting to realize how beautiful she was. In America, she was just one of many good looking people, apparently. But in Italy, in Perugia, she was the talk of the town. I mean, she was the A-lister. When people saw her looks, startled people. And so here, Patrick wanted her to go out there and drum up some business and bring the clientele into his business. But here's a problem. Amanda wasn't good at it. She was a little too talkative, and so Patrick had to cut her hours back because she really wasn't making sure the drinks stayed refilled, so he made some more money. She just liked to talk to people, because she's this chatty person, loves life and loves to talk. And so Patrick had to tell her, look, we're cutting you back now to just a couple of nights a week. You're not going to work the busy shifts on the weekend. We're just going to have you work a couple of weeknights. So that's Patrick. He's going to play a critical role in this story. Let's hear a little bit about what Patrick said about Amanda.
She gave me the impression of a good person. If she wasn't a good person, she wouldn't have worked here. That doesn't mean that her relationship with clients pleased me, because she often talked to the clients, and I had to tell her to get back to work.
All right. Any thoughts there on Patrick?
He's just a business guy. I mean, at this point in the story, I don't have any commentary on him. I mean, he's relevant later on, but.
All right, let's move on here. So the next character we got to learn about is Rudy Goudet. And Rudy Goudet, so now there were four guys I told you who lived downstairs in the downstairs apartment. And one day, Rudy Goudet goes over to join up with the other four guys. See, they had met him because, so you can kind of see there the house. There's actually a bottom floor. That top floor is where the four girls lived. On the bottom floor were where the four guys lived. By the way, one of them was a boyfriend of Meredith, but that's where the four guys lived. Well, Rudy Goudet met them at the basketball court. Now, this basketball court, I was curious about, and so I saw the basketball court. It's actually not that far away. So let me play this video for you, just to give you a little context on how far away this basketball court is from her place. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but right there is Amanda Knox's house where her and Meredith and two other roommates lived. I'm going to scan just a little bit to the left and walk across this street here. And there you can see Wendy, but that is the basketball court, the piazza, where Rudy Goudet would play basketball with the other four guys that lived on the downstairs area. And all right, I don't know if you can see my wife, Wendy, there in that picture. She was like just hanging up against the wall back there. She wanted nothing to do with me as I was taking those videos. All right. Well, nonetheless, you saw how close it was. That was the basketball court. That's where the guys hung out and played basketball. It was not a far walk at all from that basketball court to their house. And so one day, Rudy Goudet is down there with the other four guys, and they're talking. Amanda comes downstairs for whatever reason. And so she opens up the door downstairs, and as soon as she opens up, everyone is quiet. All right, they all shut up. Now, whenever that happens, usually it's like, okay, they were talking about you, and that's why they all shut up. And what actually he had said, yeah, she is really cute. I really like Amanda. In fact, he also said, I was going to be with Amanda. That is the goal. And think of that in the biblical sense, not, hey, well, I want to take her to the movies, but I actually want to be with Amanda. Now, I mention that because that little statement from him is going to turn out to be quite unfortunate for Amanda, because this statement will fuel the theory by the prosecution that is a tale of horror flicks, because the prosecution is going to run with that theory that Amanda's allure had control over Rudy Goudet. All right. Now let's fast forward here to the week of October 25th, 2007. And so Meredith and Amanda went to a concert at the university. It was a string concert, and they went there. Now, I find this to be interesting because this is, again, we're talking 1 week before Meredith was murdered. And they're going out and they're hanging out. So if there's some theory that they could not stand each other, why are they going to a concert together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that theory is really supported. I think that they were good enough friends. You know what I mean? I mean, sure, they had roommate beef, but like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, they're just girls together.
I think sometimes what you get is you get a theory, either from the prosecution or maybe driven by the media. And let's face it, most of us get our information about this case from the media. I dug into the court transcripts, but basically it's the media's narrative. So
Yeah.
we learned about a case from that media's narrative, and they were like at each other's throats. Well, not really.
Not really, no, yeah.
I mean, maybe Meredith thought that she could have better hygiene. Maybe Meredith thought that she was an obnoxious, boisterous American, but she also was a very polite British person and kept that to herself, and otherwise hung out with Amanda. Though she didn't spend all of her time with Amanda, still they went to this concert. All right, so here's what happened. This is October 25th. They go to this concert, and at intermission, Meredith had to leave. She had other plans for the evening, and a guy standing nearby saw Meredith get up and leave and realize there's an open seat there, and he had seen Amanda, and Amanda caught his attention, and so he goes over there, takes his one shot, says, "Hey, is this seat taken?" And I'm telling you, they hit it off right away. And so he was her Italian stallion. I say Italian stallion. Actually, what she said was the reason why she thought he was so cute, he looks like Harry Potter. Do you see the Harry Potter resemblance?
No, not at all.
There you go. They look like, all right.
Kind of, maybe.
Maybe not, right?
Squint.
She thought that was Harry Potter, and she loved Harry Potter, and so that started a week-long whirlwind romance, which it just lit the town on fire. They basically hardly even spent a moment apart the rest of that week. Apparently what had happened, they there for the rest of the concert. They're just kind of flirting and whatnot. And then Amanda said, "Hey, I gotta go to work. This is, at La Chic. So here's the address." Gave him the address and her phone number, and then she went off to work. Well, sure enough, he shows up with his 4 friends that evening at La Chic because he just had to see more of Amanda. And I'm telling you, they hit it off, and they did not hardly spend a time apart. That's another little map that gives you an idea of where they all lived. And so you can kind of see from this map where Knox and Kircher's villa was there. You can kind of see that yellow line that kind of goes to Raffaella's place. And so just to give you a little bit of context on where everything was. All right, well, the next week, so let's fast forward now to the end of that whirlwind week, and we're talking about Halloween. And so on Halloween, Amanda decided to dress up as a vampire. Otherwise, that would be a relatively moot point of this story. But the reason why it's relevant is the prosecution is going to pick up on the item that Amanda dressed up as a vampire on Halloween. Okay, well then eventually they're going to go to Raffaella's apartment, and they're going to see on his bookshelf that he had an anime, which I think I said that correctly. I don't know. It's a cartoon book for adults, I guess. And
yeah.
So there was an anime. And in that anime, there was this woman who dressed up as a vampire and murdered another person, some kind of satanic cult ritual. All right, do you see where I'm going now? The prosecution is connecting the dots and saying, they were going to kill on Halloween. That's why she dressed up as the vampire. I don't even know what to say about that theory.
Well, I mean, it's a theory that they ran with. I mean, the media picked up on that pretty quickly. And I mean, here's this young, beautiful, white American woman in the middle of Italy, and they demonized her very quickly. It was like a demon-fueled or demonic-fueled sex fest turned homicide.
Right.
And the story sold.
And we're going to come back to this theory
Unfortunate.
later on when we try to unpack all the different lessons that could be gleaned from the story. But we're going to come back to this thought that there is a problem when the prosecution has a theme and they love this theme. They want to run with this theme. So then every fact they then learn about a case, they try to cram into this theme. And you kind of get that feeling here that the prosecutor, who we're going to meet here in just a bit, had a theme. And everything he saw, it's like that saying to a hammer, everything is a nail. Well, once you get your theme of the case, everything seems to fit that theme, no matter how tight a fit that might be. And so I think that's a perfect situation. All right, so let's go now here to All Saints Day, the very next day. So this is, by the way, there was a connection there. I don't know if you know the connection. All Saints Day. Now, we're going to hear it in America. Most of us, I hate to even say that, but a lot of us do not celebrate All Saints Day. I say a lot of us. I have some Catholic friends, and I learned that, no, if you're Catholic, you will celebrate All Saints Day. Until I didn't quite realize that, but that is a huge thing over there in Italy, which of course is, the hub of the Catholic world, Rome, Vatican. And so they celebrate All Saints Day. The day before All Hallows Eve, that's when the ghosts and goblins go out, and that's why you get Halloween. It's on the eve of the hallowed day, which is All Saints Day. All right. Well, on All Saints Day, it is a family holiday. I mean, it's like in America, Christmas and Easter. You're taking the day off. You're going to be with family, and you're going to celebrate that holiday. And so on November 1st, it was All Saints Day, and so Amanda was hanging out with Raffaella, and they're hanging out together. And it got to about 8 o'clock that evening, and they're at Raffaella's apartment. And Amanda realized, oh shoot, I'm supposed to go to work tonight. And so she texts her bosses, Patrick, and she realized, oh no, Patrick said I don't have to go into work tonight because it's All Saints Day. No one is going to be there anyways, so you can take the day off. I'm sure Patrick was also thinking, you're not a really good employee, so I want you to take all the days off until you can figure stuff out. But basically he said, you don't have to work today. And so, by the way, do you know how to say the name of that movie? I always butcher it.
Amelie,
something like that. They were watching that movie. That's part of the record,
Sure.
so I mentioned that. But while they're watching Amelie, or however you say that, she has this text exchange with her boss, Patrick, and then she sent him, Patrick, this text. Now, I can't read the Italian. I don't know if you can read Italian, but let's just skip right to the American translation. See you later. Have a good evening. All right. Now, Leandra, if I say, hey, Leandra, I'm going to see you later.
It's not literal.
Right. What does that mean?
Right. It means I'll catch you on the flip. I'll see you around. I'll see you later at some other time and date. Not, hey, we're going to meet up later. I'll see you later this evening, literally right now. You know what I mean?
It literally means bye. Right.
Yeah.
Not literally, but you know what I'm saying? It means, hey,
Yeah,
bye.
see you later.
We're gone. I'm leaving.
Bye.
You're going that
you're
way.
right.
Maybe at some time in the future, our paths will cross. But, right now, that's just my way of saying sayonara, right? Not necessarily in the Italian language. So that's going to be a little bit of a point of contention here a little bit later on. But this is where she sent that text. All right. So they then, hang out that evening, have some fish, and then they go to sleep. Now let's go to the next day, November 2nd. We're going to call this day one of our day one. Okay, so she gets up late that morning, and the plan was they were going to go take a ride out to the countryside because it was going to be an extended weekend. You have All Saints Day, then I think the November 2nd might be All Souls Day, and so that would be Friday. Then you got the weekend, so they're going to go take a little bit of a vacation. Hey, they're one weekend into this relationship. Let's take it to the next level and go on a road trip. And so she goes over to her house to shower. They had some plumbing issues at the apartment, so she's going over to her house to shower and get some of her stuff. And so when she gets to her villa, the front door is open. Okay, little odd.
Yeah.
Not that odd because she knew that there was a latch a problem and it didn't latch. So you actually had to lock that front door with a key. As you left it, someone forgot, maybe someone was in a hurry, the door was wide open. Whatever, she walks right through it. Then she goes to take a shower, and the sink had a couple drops of blood on it. All right, well, maybe someone nicked themselves shaving, right? Maybe that was it.
Right.
All right. So then she goes in the shower, steps out of the shower, and you can see there on the bottom left of that blue mat, there is a red blood print, footprint there. Now, I say red. I don't know. Leandra, what do you see it there? It's dark. Does that look like blood to you?
I mean, if there's no reason for me to believe that the scene is bloody, and at this point she didn't, I don't know that I would have looked at that and thought it was blood. It just looks like a dark stain.
Now, later on, she is going to be criticized for going in there and so casually taking a shower when she had to bypass all that bloody evidence. I don't know. I mean, when you see small things like that, does your mind necessarily go to murder? Or does it rationalize there's a logical explanation for this other than my roommate is next door brutally murdered?
Right.
No, not everyone thinks that way. My mom actually was one of the types that she would have said, yeah, someone's been bloody murdered in the next room. Because whenever
I'm going to go investigate. No way.
Whenever my brothers were even like, let's just say a little late coming home, they could be 10 minutes. I remember one time my brother was 10 minutes late coming back home from a Youth for Christ event in Kansas City. She was on the phone with the cops saying, hey, have there been reports of any accidents anywhere? Because
oh, no.
That's how her mind went, right? You
immediately went
to the worst.
So I guess.
Yeah.
That's funny.
All right. So she leaves that scene, and then she has to go to the other bathroom to blow dry her hair. So she goes to the other bathroom, and she opens up the toilet, and I don't know how to politely say this. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have you say it. What does she find in that bath?
She finds a giant man poop, like a giant one in the toilet.
I don't even know what to say about that.
Sorry, like we're gonna gender the poop.
I don't know why you said man. I mean, come on.
Because it was big.
I know what you're saying. And so the open door didn't freak her out. The couple drops of blood didn't freak her out. The blood footprint, it didn't bother her. The man poop, that freaked the heck out of her. She was like hair up on the back of her neck because she knew there's no way her roommates did that. True story. And that's when she just freaked out. And so she calls her mom. She says, I don't know what's going on here. So go back to Raffaello's place. So she then leaves and goes back to Raffaello's place. And while she's there, she's calling people trying to figure things out. She calls Meredith, trying to figure what's going on here. Meredith, of course, does not answer her phone, but we're going to come back to that in just a bit. All right, so then she goes to Raffaello's place, and they say, hey, something is up with this room. It's just not right. All right, so then the two of them go back to the house and to kind of inspect things a little bit more. And this video kind of shows you a little bit of the route from his place over to her place and what she would have seen. But, this was they're not thinking the worst. They're just thinking, well, you went there and we saw some weird things. Something might be up and something might be amiss. So let's go check it out. And so they get there and they go inside and they look a little bit closer. And they go to Philomena's room and they notice Philomena's room, it had been broken into. There was glass. There was a broken window. But Amanda looked around and did not see anything that was stolen. I mean, she didn't see, she saw a laptop there. She saw a computer there. And so, she saw a camera there. So if someone had broken in to steal things, they left the most valuable things there. And so, but they realized this is a serious matter. This is breaking and entering. And so they called the European equivalent to 911. All right, so here's a little map. Again, I like maps when I'm talking about these stories. It gives you a little bit of context. And as I said, at the very front there is going to be where Laura's bedroom is, and Philomena's bedroom is right there. And then that back wall, you got Meredith's room is on the far, overlooking the valley, and then Amanda's room is there in the middle. All right, so they are there and they call 911. So let's listen to that call.
Pronto, buongiorno. Senta, qualcuno è praticamente entrato in casa sfondando la finestra e ha messo un molto disordine, c'è una porta chiusa. La via è... Io della Pergola. Perugia Carabinieri? Della Pergola 7. Via? Della Pergola 7 a Perugia.
Furto in abitazione, eh?
No, non c'è furto.
What's your impression from that call? Not really panicking there, just, hey, someone broke and entered, and so what's going on?
I genuinely don't think that they thought anything of it more than that. I don't think they would have, their imagination, their wildest imagination is that Meredith is actually dead in the bedroom over,
So
based off of their demeanor.
Give some context there. You see that window right there? That's going to be Meredith's room. She was there at the corner. And then this would be the broken window where the rock was thrown into. And so Amanda's room is going to be right here in the middle between Philomena's room. Then you got Amanda's room, and there on the far corner is going to be where Meredith's room was. All right. And so they didn't call Philomena. And so Philomena, she was not there. She's out with her boyfriend. So she drives back. And so she got Philomena, you got the boyfriend. Oh, I forgot to mention. So they call 911. They walk outside of the house, and lo and behold, who is there greeting them? The cops. Now, lest you think that is the fastest response by 911 in history.
Yeah.
That's not what actually happened. So they have there's two different cop systems there. I don't know if we have a similar thing here in America, but you have your national police. And so they're the ones that are going to be investigating, the bigger cases, the murder cases. But then you also have your postal police, your tech police. And so the people who showed up were the postal police. And why did they just happen to show up right then and there? Well, a neighbor had called because they had found some cell phones on their property, and they were ringing. And so they called the postal police, and they came and they got those phones, and they were able to look through their information and find out who those phones belonged to. They belonged to Meredith Kircher, and then I believe Philomena as well. So basically, they're both phones tied to that house that Meredith had. So apparently someone had discarded those phones, threw them into that neighbor's yard. And so when Amanda was calling it that morning, it was ringing, and that's when the neighbors picked them up, and then that's when they called the postal police. So they ran into the postal police.
I did not know that. That's wild. That I did not know that.
Yeah, and actually there was some discrepancy with timing, and some thought, well, wait a second here. It's odd that if you look at the timing on when the postal police said they showed up, and then you look at the actual time when the 911 call was made, according to their reports, they showed up, and then 10 minutes later is when the 911 call was placed by Raffaella. Now, that would seem a little odd, especially since he told them it happened in the opposite order. But then they actually saw some video, and they realized, no, it's actually the timestamp on the video that's off, and their statements actually were consistent. So it was, they called 911, walked out the door, and they ran into the postal police. All right, so you have the postal police there. You have Philomena there, her boyfriend, Raphael, and Amanda. No Meredith. They do not know where Meredith is. And so they realize, well, has someone checked her room? And Raffaella said, well, her door is locked. We tried to open it, but her door is locked. The police asked, well, does she always lock her door? And so Amanda said, well, sometimes she does when she's taking a shower. To which Philomena immediately shouted, she never locks her door. Now, this will be used later against Amanda, saying, see, she is lying to the police.
Being deceptive, yeah.
I don't know about that. What are your thoughts? Let me just kind of give you my quick observation of this. Why would Philomena know if she always keeps her door unlocked? I mean, how is that something you would know? First of all, she only knew her for about 6 weeks. Did she try to open up the door and always barged in? Is she trying to walk in while she's taking a shower? I mean, how would she know the door is always unlocked?
I don't know. Beats me.
Yeah. So I think this is you see a lot of people just jumping on the Amanda Knox bandwagon. She's guilty. She's guilty. Everything they look to screams that she's guilty. When I don't think her statement there was dishonest at all. Maybe it's possible Amanda tried to go in there a couple times when she was in the shower and realized, oh, the door is locked, and that's why she knew she locked the door when she used the shower. All right, whatever. But they don't know where Meredith is. And they had tried that door, and it wasn't opening. All right, so they said, we got to get in that door. Bust that door down. The postal police said, we can't do that. We don't have a warrant. We can't bust this door down. All right. Well, Philomena said, we're not the police. So she had her boyfriend go over there once, twice, I think in the third time, busted that door down. And so they go into Meredith's room, and it was obviously horrific. And so they were screaming that it's a foot. It's a foot is what Amanda heard. She also heard something referencing a wardrobe. So Amanda thought that some body was stuffed in a wardrobe. Well, as you can see from this picture, it's not in a wardrobe. There is a foot there sticking out of this blanket. And so that's why everyone was screaming and yelling, because Meredith had been brutally murdered. And so do you take anything from just seeing that scene there of a body underneath a blanket?
Yeah, so from like a forensic standpoint, well, the body under a blanket, whoever did it is trying, like, covering up, hiding. They're ashamed maybe of what they did, or they don't want to look at what they did. I think it's relevant that her underwear look like they're on the floor. Maybe it's at this point in time, if I don't know all the details, I'm just walking into this scene. I'm gonna think, okay, is it sexually motivated? Preserving the scene for like what's going on here,
Right,
DNA, that kind of thing.
So one of the arguments that was made early on, but I have heard it being discredited since then, is that the body was covered up, showing that this might have been a female who did the crime. I've then read other reports that says, no, that's actually not true. I mean, that you really can't tell the sex of the defendant based upon a covering up of the body. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I guess I'm not an expert as far as behavioral analysis or anything like that, but I did have to take a couple courses in undergrad and in grad school. And I don't know that you can gender, whether or not it was a female or a male, just based off of the fact that she was covered up. I mean, I think it's somebody who wants to hide what they did or not look at what they did, that kind of thing, or maybe they're ashamed of what they did. But based off of this alone, I don't know that you can say that it was a female.
Well, one of the big stories from this, let's watch this video. It's going to show a little bit of what they observed when they processed the room.
Work inside and outside the cottage. Right away, they think it's a staged break-in. Glass shards are on top rather than underneath the scattered clothes. The large rock seems too heavy to be thrown from the ground to the first floor window, and too big to go through the small crack between the shutters. A handbag, jewelry case, camera and laptop computer are lying in full view. There's a line of bloody shoe prints from Meredith's room to the front door. And in the bathroom, a bloody bare footprint is on the bath mat.
We're going to eventually get to all of the evidence that was collected there and how it was collected, but I want to focus first on a common theme throughout this entire story, and that is the odd behavior of Amanda. I think that is one of the lasting tales from the story is the danger of being in a foreign culture where you are acting in ways that you think are normal, but this culture doesn't receive that as being normal. Well, one of the storylines is going to be Amanda acted very immature-ish, very odd, because she was making out with her boyfriend right outside of this murder scene. And I don't know if you heard that tale as well?
Oh yeah, no, this is one of the most when you told me that we were going to be covering this was one of the main things I remembered from the case. And objectively, I think her behavior is super weird. I mean, even all the way through her interviews, which I'm sure we'll get to, her behavior is just bizarre. But then I think, what was I doing at 19? I'm young. I have a taste of freedom for the first time. If I had been studying abroad, that kind of thing. I don't know.
Well, I think that's very fair to say, hold on a second, she's 19. Why are we expecting her act like a fully mature person would? She's just processing this at that young age, and she's so full of life. But that aside, the media narrative was she was making out right outside the crime scene. Let's watch this makeout session, because I want your opinion on, do you think this actually is a makeout session? All right, that is the video that has been played over and over and over about their makeout session. We didn't leave out
Yeah.
any other videos. It's just him taking his arm and kind of caressing her arm, and then those couple of pecks. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I wouldn't have called that a makeout session, but I do think, and maybe this is cultural or just like how I was raised, but PDA like that is weird to me anyway. And then, but added to the fact that her roommate was just murdered or like they're dealing with some serious crap right now. And it's not just like a side hug or like a comfort, like, oh, come here, we're going to get through this. It feels like more intimate than that. So I still think it's weird.
All
But at the
right.
same time, she's like 19 or 20 and what was I doing when I was 19
Right.
or 20? You know what I mean?
My take on that was it just seemed like she was distraught. I mean, you see all over her face she was distraught. And he was just trying to comfort her and trying to
And
reassure her.
maybe,
And it might have been odd, but it just seemed like it was nothing more than that. But
yeah, I guess when I'm distraught or like, don't touch me.
all right, that's
Uh,
a good point. To each their own. All right, let's talk a little bit about
yeah.
the evidence that was collected. You saw some of it there from that video. There was a Meredith's bra clasp was cut off. Now, I'm not quite sure I understand fully what happened with that bra clasp. Maybe I do. And so, but basically, it said it wasn't ripped off; it was cut off. And so they knew that enough. I guess from the knife, maybe you can see the clean cut. So at some point during this altercation, the knife was taken and it cut off her bra clasp. All right. Now the thing is, though, you're going to see video, or there is video of the bra clasp. There's pictures of the bra clasp on day one. So it was there. It was visible. It was not collected. It's not going to be collected until not day 2, not day 3, not day 4, not a week later. You know what? Let me just speed to the end. Day 46.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
insane to me.
you have a bra clasp that's in the original photograph of the scene, not being collected for over a month, 46 days.
Yeah, you're not protecting or like the integrity of the evidence. I mean, at that point, if it was valuable at day 1, it's certainly not going to be valuable it shouldn't have been valuable at day 46 because so much movement had taken place.
So what we're going to find out.
So shame on them.
Right. Well, what we're going to learn here, I hate to do a spoiler alert, but when we talk about issues, I want to just jump on while we're there. What we're going to learn is that there is going to be some issue when you have something like that in a room and then dust collects, because there actually are going to be DNA particles that float around in the air. Not a lot, but there will be some particles that get moved around. When you are in a house and then things get moved around from one place to the other, it's possible that small traces of DNA can find itself in the air and on various objects. We're going to touch a little bit later about the DNA that was found on that bra clasp. All right. And so they also found this, which is kind of interesting. They asked Amanda, I forgot to mention this part of the story, but she then brought Rafaela back to the house. All right. And she told him about all that she saw. They go to the toilet. There's no poop in the toilet. So she tells the investigators when they come, so yeah. And so I went and I saw the poop in the toilet. I went back, we came back, and it's gone. Someone flushed it. Well, they go to the toilet, and lo and behold, it's still there. And they use that to say Amanda is lying to us. I don't even know how to make heads or tails over why. I mean, how do you miss that the second time around? I don't even know what her motivation to lie would be. Can you make heads or tails out of that part of the story?
No, not at all. I thought you were going to say they didn't collect the man poop. And I was like, well, that's another dropped ball on their part. I was not ready for you to say that it was still there. That's what I thought. I was like, what the heck?
They did collect it, and they collected the DNA from it. And so it will come back in this case later on. But her story was it was there, and then it wasn't, and then it was there again when they went there. So I guess their theory is this. Her story keeps changing. She can't keep her story straight. And when you are in the process of lying, maybe it's hard to keep your story straight. So I think that's where the prosecution is going with attacking her for misremembering what happened in that particular event. All right. And so I don't even know how to describe the next part here because I got to do it very delicately because I almost wish I didn't have to do this. So I'm going to dance around it. But I need to talk a little bit about what happened to Meredith. Okay, it's gross, it's horrific, but it does play a role into the actual punishment we're going to talk about here at the end. All right, so the forensic gynecologist determined that there was significant enough bruising around the areas that suggest forcible rape in both locations. And so the autopsy only indicated that there was trauma to the area. So you have two different experts reports. You have a forensic gynecologist that says there's significant enough of bruising, which meant there was anal sex and there was vaginal sex that was going on here. And then the autopsy indicated that there was trauma to the area. Is this in conflict? That you have an autopsy conflicting with a forensic gynecologist?
You're saying the autopsy said that there was not significant bruising?
There was trauma to the area. It's what it's trauma. Whereas the gynecologist said there was significant bruising, or is that saying the same thing?
That's saying the same thing.
Okay, all right.
I guess I would also point out, I'm just going to interject here, for how violent the attack would have had to have been for there to be trauma. I mean, women's bodies are designed to stretch. So generally speaking, in sexual assault cases, there's not generally trauma. So okay. I think that just speaks to how bad this truly is or was.
Okay, the autopsy reported there were 16 bruises and 7 cuts, with one fatal cut to the neck. That's how she died. There was some bruising around her nose and mouth that suggests someone had put their hand over their nose and mouth to keep them quiet during the attack. There were small pricks of the knife around her neck. This suggested the attacker pointed the knife with some kind of threatening manner, like, "Hey, don't you move," or whatever. But there's small pricks. I can't even read this stuff. This just makes me shudder. They think it took her 10 minutes to bleed out and die. When I read that, I thought, what an incredibly gruesome way to die. I mean, I can excuse, because I fully understand the team prosecution, while they were saying we've got to get justice for Meredith. Yeah. This is horrific.
Yeah.
All right. So this is interesting. The main prosecutor, Giuliano Menini, he was actually at the crime scene. Any thoughts on that? But one of the overarching stories here is going to be the comparison between Italian law and American law. Here, team prosecution, the lead prosecutor, Giuliano Menini, showed up at the crime scene right then, right there, and helped process the crime scene.
Yeah, so prosecutors generally don't have the education or the ability, I guess, to be involved in the investigation side. It's kind of a split situation here where investigators do their job and then they provide all the information to the state, and then the prosecutor reviews it and decides what charges to bring. It's very rare. I won't say never. I know there's some situations where prosecutors will go out to the scene, usually super high profile scenes. Maybe this was a high profile case for Italy at the time, but here I'm thinking like death of babies, maybe a shooting or something like that, it's like, okay, we're going to go take a look. Usually it's after the scene's been processed, just to get a feel for what's going on. Never, ever should a prosecutor, I guess, in America ever have their physical hands in the investigation, like
right.
Hands-on, boots on the ground type investigatory stuff, like collecting evidence and that kind of thing. That's really weird.
So in Italy, it's very much a different system. There, it's team prosecution. He actually leads the investigation. He would be over the detectives as well as the lawyers prosecuting the case. He is the head of the investigative team. And so he had his own baggage, and his baggage, I think, is related to how the Amanda Knox story gets played out. So we got to unpack it. So it's about the Monster of Florence case. Now, the Monster of Florence was a horrific serial killer responsible for over 20 murders there in Italy. And so he was the prosecutor in that case. So apparently what happened was Prosecutor Menini is the one who reopened up the Monster of Florence investigation. He charged 20 public officials with complicity of the murders and the cover-ups of the 20 murders. And so what he alleged was that, yes, there was 20 murders, but the body had been changed out and swapped out for a different body. And so he actually ordered for the body to be exhumed, to be reanalyzed. Turns out it was the actual correct body. It wasn't a body double that had been buried. So, but he thought the 20 officials were involved in the cover-up of that murder. And so he ordered the body exam, but it was the correct person. So he did look like an absolute fool, but he still brought those 20 charges against 20 public officials for being complicit. And he said they were involved in a satanic ritual where they all got together to commit all these murders. He loved a good satanic ritual theme.
Yeah, what is up with this guy?
Yeah. And so this had to have been tremendously embarrassing for him. By the way, at the end of the day, he is going to be charged with some ethical charges, and he will get convicted of these ethical charges. It will get overturned on appeal. But he has his own baggage when it came to the Monster of Florence, his public reputation. So is he seeing the Amanda Knox situation as a chance to vindicate himself, or at least to avoid further embarrassment?
I think that might be some motivation there. I don't know if you have any pictures in your slideshow. Something I remember about him was that he always had the pipe. He was always like Sherlock Holmesing it, and it just gives me the ick. Like,
right?
Come on. He's also quoted talking about how, like, I'm not a hero or something like that, but then other statements were contradictory to that statement. Right. He's like, I am the hero. I am a superhero. Like,
so he is leading the investigation.
You and your pipes, sir.
Yeah, he's leading the investigation on day one. And already at the end of day one, Amanda's and Raffaella's phones were already being bugged. And so in America, you're going to, I don't know, do you think there's enough evidence here against Amanda and Raffaella to have bugged their phones in America after day one?
Absolutely not. At this point in time, absolutely not.
I mean, what did she do? I mean, she acted weird outside of the crime scene. That's all we know, that she acted weird. And so they bugged their two phones. All right. So then over the next 5 days, Amanda will be interviewed by the police for over 50 hours, an average of 10 hours a day. So just keep that statistic in the back of your mind. All right. Well, she gets called back to the police to the police station for some questioning there. We're gonna go over a lot of these questionings, but this is day one, right? So right after the murder, and so she's thinking the police need my help. I'm the biggest ally to the police here, and so she could have started making plans to go back home. A lot of the other roommates were making plans to go back home and leave the country, so she could have done that. The mother even offered for her to do that. But she really felt like she had to stay there because she was the best help the police had at finding who the real killer was, who did this to her roommate. So she goes over to the police station, and her behavior in the waiting room on that day is somewhat suspect. Some would say
it's weird.
Yeah. Some would say really weird, extremely offensive. All right. So she was sitting and giggling on Raffaella's lap. No, I mean,
again, she's 19, she's young, she's having fun, but at the same time, it's just hard for me to not think that behavior is weird. And again, maybe it's how I was raised, and PDA just freaks me out, and I don't like to be touched in public, but that's weird to me. And now she knows at this point that her roommate was brutally murdered. So
I just hate to second guess someone, how they behave in those weird moments, because she's obviously processing this. She's trying to probably not freak out and lose her crap, right? And she's a happy, fun personality. And I'm kind of that way. I've been that way my entire life. And I wonder, how would I act in that kind of situation when I was 19? I remember one of my my teachers when I was in college, I was just laughing, doing belly laughs in a class. And she said she really took joy in seeing how much I enjoyed life. I wonder, was Amanda the same way? Just enjoying life? And so now in this odd moment, she didn't know how to express herself. And that's all that she could think to do in that moment. I don't know, but it does get weirder. All right, let's go. She then wrote in her notebook, All right. So she loves the diary. She wants to be a writer in the future. And so in her notebook, which by the way was later confiscated by the police and leaked to the media, she wrote this entry on day 1 in her notebook. I'd really like to say I could kill for a pizza, but it doesn't seem right.
Girl.
I mean, that is some good dark humor. Is that the time you should be trying out your dark humor chops?
Probably not. Probably not.
I know. Now, she's writing it in her notebook. How did her notebook get turned over as well and get leaked? That's a whole another story. All right. So the detectives kept telling Amanda that she is the most critical witness. He said because she was the roommate, she had the most interaction with Meredith. She saw most of the comings and goings there, so she would know who most of the people that came in to that place, the downstairs area. And so she thought she was a critical witness for the police. I do have to wonder if we have another thing going on here. There's another sub-story, and that is, did Amanda really enjoy the attention? Because now everyone's watching her. Everyone's listening to her. Here's a 19-year-old. She goes over to Italy. A huge event's happening, and she is the center of that world. And maybe she's reading the foreign press. She's the center of the entire world at that moment in time. Do you think she's enjoying the attention in this moment?
I read an excerpt that, so maybe for the investigation, like the intimate setting, maybe she enjoys the attention. But I did read an excerpt that said she didn't realize that it had made international news and headlines, and she was on the face of every media outlet everywhere in America until her mom actually communicated that to her. She had no idea that everyone was talking about it worldwide. So
Interesting.
Maybe she did, and that's assuming that that was accurate, that information is accurate, but maybe she did enjoy the attention from and maybe feeling like she was being helpful.
All right, well, let's pause here because I want to just do a little bit of reflection. This is day 1 of this story, and I want to do some what ifs because we know where the story's going. But what if she had acted differently? What if she had acted like a normal Italian? Would the cops have even looked her direction? What do you think?
Well, I guess my question is, what does a normal? I've never been to Italy, and I'm not super familiar with Italian culture. So I guess my question would be, what would normal be like? Because Raphael was obviously taking part. He is Italian, and he was taking part in the same objectively strange behaviors as Amanda was. So
you know what? I think Raffaella was just overtaken by Amanda. I think he just thought she was amazing. And I think he would have done anything for Amanda. So I think he was reacting and helping her in the moment. She wants to hug.
Sure.
I'm going to hug her. She wants to have she needs a peck to assure her. I'm going to be that person. I think he wanted to be there for Amanda, even if that meant he acted in different ways. I'm saying if she had not sat on his lap. Now he will say later on that it was he wished that she hadn't done that kind of stuff, and so he didn't feel kind of like he was put on the spot there, and he was just kind of consoling her. But what if she had not kissed him? What if she had not sat on his lap acting giggly? But what if Amanda had consulted with a lawyer? So right here already she was a suspect. She didn't realize she was a suspect. I guess she's not in custody yet, so they wouldn't have had to Mirandize her. But what if she had consulted with a lawyer here? How would things have been different for her?
She probably would have been told not to speak or not to say anything and let the cops investigate and come up with their own stuff. Or, I mean, I'm not a defense attorney, but maybe they sit down and they say, okay, you can meet with my client in my presence, and if there's some questions that start going awry or into left field, I'm gonna tell my client, hey, don't answer that, and we're out of here.
Yeah. It is an interesting thing. If she just acted differently, what would have happened? All right. Well, she didn't, and so let's now go on to day 2. So the next day, they take Amanda to the crime scene, which is interesting because they did not take anyone else to the crime scene. They just took Amanda. Well, she had 3 other roommates. why did they just take Amanda to the crime scene? But they took her there, and they had her wear some booties over her shoes as she went there. And so when she put the booties on at the crime scene, she raised her hands up in the air, and she exclaimed, "Ta-da!" as if she were in some kind of Hollywood production. And so I don't know what to make of that. Again,
I don't either. But again, at 19 and you're trying, maybe she's just uncomfortable and trying to make light of the situation. I don't know.
okay. Day 2, the oddity continues. So on day 2, she needs some clothes to wear because obviously she's not allowed back in her room to gather her stuff, and she's running out of clothes. Her mom is coming, so she doesn't want to buy a whole new wardrobe because let mom do that when she gets there. So she has Raffaella take her to a store to buy some underwear. It's also, she wanted to buy some underwear. So they go there, and it's it's a package of underwear. And so it had a cartoon character on the underwear. So Raffaella makes some kind of offhanded comment like, "That'll be fun to see on." Something like that. Well, the shop owner then goes to the media and reports to the media that he overheard Amanda Knox say something to Raffaella that says, "Afterwards, I'm going to take you home so we can have wild sex together." That's what the shopkeeper told the media about what was going on, what was being said between Amanda and Raffaella. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, at this point, it's like a game of telephone, I feel like, and it's anything that they can sell to the media because it's like the beginning of trial by media is exactly what's happening here.
I think this is ground zero of the wild sex game theories. I think when all of a sudden this hit the media and they started running with these stories, the media, that story just becomes the story in this case. It's going to fuel what we're going to learn to be the prosecution's theory here in just a bit. I think this actually is ground zero of those crazy stories. All right, so that's what happened on day 2. So let's play the what if game again. What if the Italian police did not have a preoccupation with sex? Again, I say Italian police. Remember, the Italian police is being run by the prosecutor, Manini. And so if they did not have a preoccupation with sex, might they had a different theory and she wouldn't have been crucial to that theory? What if Amanda had left town? So we talked about day 1, if she had gone to a lawyer. I can pretty much assure you if I had a client like that and the client had come to me, I would have said, "We're getting you out of here as fast as we can. You're going back to America today."
No,
all the others did.
That screams guilt. Flight. I'm leaving.
The others did. The other roommates took off. They wanted to go back home to Britain, Said, "No, we're getting out of here."
If she's already a suspect and she runs as a prosecutor, I'm going to say, "Ding, ding, 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 ding. Hello."
You know what? I say, let you go ding, ding, ding when I'm over in America. And I'm going to deal with the American court system and not these crazy Italian court systems.
That's so funny.
All right. And so Aunt Dolly, she actually could have called a lawyer. She decided not to call. So Aunt Dolly was her lawyer, or her aunt, and lived, I believe, in Germany nearby. And she called Aunt Dolly. And Aunt Dolly said, "Well, do you want me to get you a lawyer?" If she had just done that, then maybe her rights would have been respected there at the very beginning, and things would not have derailed. And then, of course, what if Amanda had bought boxers instead of the underwear that she did buy? Which I say that, but the reality is it didn't really matter. They were running with their story because she did not buy G-strings. That's what they said. She bought G-strings. That's not what she bought. All right, let's move on now to day 3. So on day 3, 2 days after the body was found, now the investigators took all of the girls back to the house. It's interesting that the day before, they only took Amanda. Now they took all 3 back to the house. And so they went to the knife drawer, and they asked only Amanda, "Do you see anything missing from the knife drawer?" And then Amanda realized, why are they asking me this? They're asking me if I recognize what was the murder weapon. Like my eyes would be glued to the actual murder weapon, so I would hand it to you. Why do they ask her that? I do not know. But that was on day 3. So now let's move on to day 4. And this is going to be the big day here. This is when they really start to raise their temperature with her. Their patience is kind of run dry here. I guess maybe everyone's patience is running dry. And this is, she's suffered through many hours of questioning here. Hasn't really slept much. Hasn't been back in her own bed for a long time. And so they keep yelling at her, telling her not to stop lying. So look, you're lying to us. Stop lying to us. And so they would raise their voice. They would yell at her. And what they were telling her is, we don't think necessarily you did it, but you know who did it. Why won't you just tell us who committed this murder? And so one thing that's interesting about this interaction was it was not being taped. Now, it was proper protocol in Italian procedures that if you have a suspect there, you are going to videotape that interrogation. Now, technically, she was not a suspect yet, even though they were bugging her phones the entire time. But it was not being videotaped, and she did not have an interpreter in the room, which, according to her, her Italian was about at the level of a third grader, fourth grader. So she could speak a little Italian, but there definitely were some difficulties in understanding what is being said. So, any thought now as we head into day 4 of this interrogation?
I mean, it's not looking good for her, and it's all the things that I would be thinking, like, where are the protections, like the interpreter, or making sure that it's, videotaped and that they're not being coercive and trying to get her to admit to things that might not necessarily be accurate. Yeah.
All right. Well, we are not done yet. We're talking about her weird, odd behavior. And so that night, there was a memorial for her roommate, Meredith Kircher. And Raffaella could not go for some reason. He is given a pass because, according to what I've read, he had to prepare for his master's. He was working on some paper that needed to be done. He was gearing up for that. And this was taking a lot of his time. And Amanda decided she did not want to go to the memorial because if Raffaella couldn't go, she didn't want to go. This is not a good look. I don't understand why she did not go to the memorial of her roommate. Any thoughts?
I think it's a double-edged sword because she doesn't go, and it's weird and suspicious in conjunction with everything else. Or she could have gone and say she went and say she didn't behave the culturally appropriate way to behave, and then they would have hooked their nails into that behavior and twisted it in a way to say, oh, she's guilty because of that as well. So, I mean, I think she's damned if she does and damned if she doesn't in this situation.
That is a good point. It seems like she's acting inappropriately no matter what she does. So why go there and be under a microscope even more? And I wonder if the thought also wasn't that this is Meredith's memorial. And if she showed up, she's going to steal the limelight and everyone's going to be paying attention to her. I don't know if she had that realization yet that she was the focal point for all the international press, but she clearly was, and she would have stolen the spotlight. So yeah, that's a situation she absolutely could not have won no matter what decision she made. All right. So after the memorial, they call in Raffaella for further questions. So we're talking 9 o'clock or so at night. I don't know why the cops want to interrogate people in the wee hours of the morning, but this is not my first rodeo. I've done a lot of these true crime, stories, and that is a common theme that I see. They like to wake people up in the middle of the night. This is not going to bode well for me if I'm ever a suspect in any crime, because if they want to investigate me in the middle of the night, I can't stay awake. I will probably say anything just to go back to bed. All right. So they call him in. Now, I wonder if they knew that meant Amanda would also be there, because they had to have known Amanda followed him everywhere during this whole entire week. If you want to know where Amanda was, just go find Raffaella, and she was right there. And so, but they knew the clock was ticking. They had bugged their phones. They knew her mom was coming. So they had to act fast and get her, behind bars, because once the mom was going to come, then everything was going to change. So they called Raffaella in, and so they have him back questioning her, and she's there in the foyer, if you will, talking to another cop. And as the story goes, the cop comes over there and sees that she's doing some stretches to kind of just relax, make herself feel a little bit more at ease. You know, I assume it's a stressful time, all the sitting, standing, whatever. So she's trying to do some stretches, some yoga to put her mind at ease. And so the guy was kind of impressed with what she was doing. And so the cop asked, is there anything else you can do? And so that's when she did the cartwheels to impress him.
Ooh, the famous cartwheels. It's just weird behavior. It's so weird.
Why would she do that here? I mean,
I don't know. I don't know. But again, she's 19. She's alone. She's bubbly, eccentric, all the things, full
all
of
right.
life.
Well, at this point in time, another detective comes by and says, what are you doing? It's inappropriate. You know what? If we're going to talk to you, we need to go make this official. So they drag her back into a separate interrogation room, and it's when they really turn up the heat on her. And so while they're there, here's the common refrain. They kept saying, why are you lying to us? We know you are lying to us. And I kind of have to wonder, at what point do police cross the line and really start doing abusive tactics? And I don't want you to comment on this because I know you're a prosecutor and your team prosecution. I get that you're team prosecution.
Wait, hang on. I'm team fair and objective and thorough and responsible prosecution.
All right. But it's established that it's fair game that cops can lie. I don't know why that is. Why is it in American law, it's fair game for cops to lie? Now, I know there's some things that cops cannot lie about. And I don't know. In a lot of situations, I want the bad guys to go away. It just rubs me the wrong way. That's my thought. That's not necessarily your thought. All right. So here they're lying to her and they're saying, look, we know you're lying to us. We have evidence because here's the deal. Your boyfriend, your boy toy, Raffaella, you say that you were with him all night. That's not what he said. No, he just told us that you were gone a lot of the night and that you asked him to lie for you. So now what do you got to say about that? All right, here's the deal. Raphael did not say that. They're just lying to her to say, hey, stop lying to us. Give us a story. We already got the goods on you. We know you're lying to us. Your boyfriend's already ratted you out. So come clean. And so that's what they said. Now, what Raffaella actually said was this. Because they were doing the same pressures on Raffaella. And what they told Raffaella was, look, are you sure Amanda was with you all night? Really? All night? So you were awake all night and you had your eyes on him. Well, is it not possible that you fell asleep and while you were asleep, maybe she left and then came back before you woke up? Is that not possible? To which his immediate response was, I guess that's possible if I was asleep. It didn't dawn on him till later that, no, that wasn't even possible because the door locks behind you. And she would have had to have him buzz her back in. She didn't have a key, so that wasn't possible. But in the moment, he said, I guess that's possible. All right. As far as Raffaella saying, oh yeah, Amanda asked me to lie, that was a complete lie. Raffaella never said that. So Amanda this is what's going through Amanda's mind. Why did he say that? I thought I knew him. I mean, we've been like lovers for all of 7 days. I know this guy inside and out. Why? That sounds so un-Raffaella-like. Why would he lie about that? And so then she starts to entertain the thought of, am I misremembering? I thought I had a clear recollection of what took place, but am I not remembering things correctly? All right. And then they said this. They said, you know what? We know you're lying about Patrick because we got your text messages. Let's go back to that text message. You know the one I referenced earlier? By the way, that's what she said. I started forgetting everything and my mind was spinning. I felt as if I was going totally blank. And so they said, you know what? It's Patrick. We know that Patrick did it and you were a part of it. And so she said, no, Patrick had nothing to do with it. So we got the text message. You see, you sent him this text message. See you later. Have a good evening. That meant you scheduled an appointment to see him later that evening, i.e. to kill Meredith. Haha, we got you. Now what do you got to say about that? All right. So what's your take on that police approach?
I mean, I think it's dirty in a situation like this, and it's coercive. I mean, she's been interviewed how many hours at this point? You said over 50 hours.
Over 50 hours in total.
Yeah. She has no representation. She's a young girl there by herself, and they're telling her these things and psychologically messing with her to the point where she's like, "Oh shoot, maybe they're right and I just don't remember what happened, but like you're telling me these things, so maybe I did do it, you know?" And I think that's a problem.
All right. So, and we all can agree, see you later. Have a good evening. That's not, let's schedule an appointment for later today. But that does show you some of the difficulties of being in a foreign country where you don't really understand their language. All right. So finally, and by the way, she does claim that one of the police detectives hit her on the back of the head a couple of times to say, hey, stop lying to us. Go ahead and tell us. Go ahead and tell us. So finally, she blurted out, okay, it's Patrick. It's Patrick. All right. And then she said, I guess so. I'm confused. And then they said, all right, well, sign this confession. So they go and they print out her confession. All right.
Yeah.
And so this is the English translation of it. So I just want to read this, point out some things here from this confession, just to kind of give you a feel for what kind of confession this was. So this was actually not written by her. This was written by the detectives. Okay, and that's dated here. I don't know if you can see there at the top. It's November 6th, 2007 at 1:45 in the morning. And so this is what it said. Let's just go up here to the top because one of these parks, actually, let me flip here. So on November 6th, 2007 in Perugia, at the office of the Squadra Mobile of the Questura of Perugia, before the undersigned officers of the judicial authority. Let's scroll down here. In order to complete what has been retained before by means of precedent declarations made at his office, I wish to clarify that I know and I see other people who have also come to my house sometimes and who have also met Meredith and of whom I will provide the relevant mobile numbers. All right, so she's saying, this is just getting into the confession. Now we're going to get into the confession. One of these people is Patrick, a colored citizen who's about 1.70 to 1.75 centimeters tall with braids, owner of the Pub La Chic located at that address. I know he lives in the area near the roundabout of Port Pesa, pub where I work twice a week on Mondays and on Thursdays from 22 until about 2 in the morning. Last Thursday, November 1st, day of which I usually work, while I was in the apartment of my boyfriend Rafaela at about 20:30, I received a message from Patrick on my mobile telling me that evening the pub would remain closed because there were no people. Therefore, I didn't have to go to work. I replied to the message saying that we would meet immediately. Therefore, I went out telling my boyfriend that I had to go to work. I wish to state first that in the afternoon I had smoked a joint with Rafaela. Therefore, I felt confused because I do not usually make use of narcotics nor harder drugs. I met Patrick soon after at the basketball court at Piazza Gramana, and we went home. I do not remember if Meredith was already there or if she came later. I find it difficult to remember those moments, but Patrick had sex with Meredith, with whom he was infatuated, but I do not remember well if Meredith had been threatened before. I vaguely remember that he killed her. The office acknowledges that the statement stops here and that Knox Amanda is put at the disposal of the proceeding judicial authority. Any thoughts about that confession?
It's just so bad and fake and coerced. It's unbelievable. It's like they plugged in the information, they made the evidence, or they tried to make the evidence fit the theory that they originally bid onto.
I just can't imagine in my mind how they're even processing. They had to know in their own mind this was their own creation. This was their fiction. They wrote this.
And like that's not justice because the real person that's actually responsible is still out there, you know? Like why are you so gung ho on putting someone away when you should be gung ho on putting the right person away, you know?
All right. So that's at 1:45, and then at 5:45 in the morning, they decided to do another one to maybe clear up some of the problems with the first confession. Again, this also was written in Italian by the team prosecution, and they had Amanda sign it. And this is what this one said. On November 6, 2007 at 5:45 in Perugia at the office of the Squadra Mobile of the Questura before the blah, blah, blah. Go down there to that next paragraph. I wish to relate spontaneously what happened because these events have deeply bothered me, and I am really afraid of Patrick, the African boy who owns the pub called La Chic, located at Via Alessi, where I work periodically. I met him in the evening of November 1st, 2007, after sending him a reply message saying, I will see you. We met soon after at about 21 o'clock at the basketball court of Piazza Gramana. We went to my apartment at Via della Perugia, number 7. I do not clearly remember if Meredith was already at home or if she came later. What I can say is that Patrick and Meredith went into Meredith's room, while I think I stayed in the kitchen. I cannot remember how long they stayed together in the room, but I can only say that at a certain point I heard Meredith screaming. And as I was scared, I plugged up my ears. Then I do not remember anything. I am very confused. I do not remember if Meredith was screaming and if I heard some thuds too because I was upset, but I imagine what could have happened. All right. Any thoughts on that second confession that they had her sign?
I mean, I think that it just keeps progressively getting worse and more elaborate and just fake and false. The other thing that, I mean, at this point in time, they know they have DNA. They know that Patrick's DNA is not, well, they don't know, I guess, but there's a significant chance that Patrick's DNA is not the DNA.
Let me ask you that. Let me just ask you about that question, because that's something I do not know the answer to. So,
Sure.
Fingerprints. I assume they would know identity of fingerprints immediately. That's a test that does not take long to run, right or wrong?
That's correct.
Okay.
I mean,
DNA. How
goes
long
to
does
a
it
lab.
take for them to collect DNA, analyze it, and find out whose DNA it is?
So the collection is quick at the scene. You collect it, you preserve it, you send it off to the lab. It depends on how backed up your labs are and how long it actually takes for it to be.
Let's say this is a case of priority and they're not doing anything else and they get it to you right away. I mean, is this like an
I still
hour
think it's going to
turnaround
take
or a
a
week
couple.
turnaround?
Oh, no, it's going to take time. It's probably going to take a week at
Okay.
minimum.
Okay. And we're not even talking 2007. I'm assuming you're talking today, but it might have been even longer back in 2007. So it would have taken them a little bit of time. But they would have known fingerprints right away. Patrick's fingerprints were nowhere at the scene at all. They would have known that. They would have known that there were a bunch of fingerprints at the scene, none of which belonged to Patrick.
The other problem is, sorry, I was just gonna say it doesn't matter how much DNA or fingerprints you have if you don't have somebody to compare them to. So even though they could collect the fingerprints and analyze them immediately, they still have to go find their suspect and print their suspect and compare.
Hold on to that thought just a second, because I know where you're going with that. But then when I tell you how the story ends, you're going to be even more upset with team prosecution. All right. What also, another problem I have with these two confessions is, do you know who is missing from these confessions?
The guy that did it,
Well,
or Raphael.
Raffaella.
Yeah.
So she's confessing, but she's not gonna. Are they just saying, well, because your lover, you're covering for him, you're gonna admit yourself? But so what do they actually have on Raffaella here?
Nothing.
Nothing. Nada.
Yeah.
I so focus on Amanda that I often forget that he was arrested too under the same theory, and they don't have a forced confession from him, and they don't even have a confession from Amanda implicating him. So where is it? Where is the evidence or the justification against Raffaella? I have not a clue on that one. Other than they were, I guess Amanda said, I was with him all evening. So there's that until she comes up with this. But even in these two confessions, you will not see his name anywhere. So there is no implication of him. All right. So then what happens is later on that after a couple of hours, she then is given a chance to sleep. And so she's finally come to, and she realizes, I don't think I said the right thing. I gave some testimony. I know I signed a couple of confessions that were in Italian. I just don't think it actually happened that way at all. I've had a chance to sleep. I've had a chance to clear my thoughts, and it's coming back to me, not as you said. So she wants to set the record straight. So she calls them, hey, let me go ahead and talk to you. I want to set the record straight. they won't let her do it. She said, well, then give me a piece of paper. I'll just write it out. So she gets a piece of paper and she writes out the last, her statement. And so it's time for us to take a break. So let's take about a 15-minute break, and we'll come back from this break and we'll go over what she says, a handwritten note, now after she's had a chance to fully think through what actually took place on the date in question. So